This is Tom. He sells a $10,000 coaching program helping mid-career professionals to become strong leaders and get ahead in their career. Here's the problem. He has successfully scaled his business to just shy of $1 million a year, but he wants to double it and he is stuck. We are going to spend the next hour or so finding out exactly what he's got going on, pinpoint every bottleneck, and find a solution for him to be able to double the business. I hope you enjoyed the conversation. Good stuff. Okay, Tom, let's start by you just running me through a little bit about the business again. Just talk me through what industry you're in, who it is that you serve, and then what the product is, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, sure. So what we do is we help primarily mid-career professionals become executives, people who get stuck in their professional career, can't quite figure out how to move to the executive ranks. I had a 15-year career as an executive. Until 2022, I got sick with leukemia, recovered, thankfully, and decided I didn't want to spend the rest of my life as an executive. I wanted to be a teacher. And so I've been coaching people to become executives ever since. So we've started 2023, that first year, I think we did almost 300,000 US the first year. Second year, a little over 930,000 US, and then last year, 950,000 US. And so this year, we're struggling a little bit with revenue, and we're still trying to figure out what's going on there. But the success that our clients have had has been tremendous.
Yeah, got it. Okay, great. Good stuff. So I'm going to ask you a bunch of other questions, if you don't mind. This is how we're going to start this process, because for me to figure out, or at least to attempt to help you to do this, to figure out what the bottlenecks are, where we are kind of, where the gap is to be able to scale, I need to ask you a whole bunch of questions, and that's going to start to reveal the answer, or it usually does. There's typically one of 7 things that's going to stop the scale, and we just need to identify which of the 7 it is, and then we just dive in a little bit deeper. What would you say is the main driver for the clients that invest with you and join your program? Is the driver that they see the pay packet that would come with moving up to the next level in their career, and that justifies the investment with you? Or is it more a personal growth journey, and irrespective of more earnings, they would still do it? Like, what would you say the main drivers are?
I think it's a mix of both. That the money that they make at a higher level definitely makes the ROI clear. But the reality is that the way we sell this and the way we actually help people is we help good people become great leaders, and we teach them what leadership actually looks like. We teach them how to show up and sound like an executive, and we also help people align their career with their life purpose. And those things are what really attract in our demographic, which tend to be a little bit more of an empathetic audience.
Right, got it. Okay, and the main offer you have, the core offer, how much is that?
It's 10,000.
Yep. And that's to work with you for how long?
For 6 months.
Okay, got it. And for those that you said, it's a bit of both. So for those that are joining it primarily because they see the return on that, because they might get the promotion. What is for your average client, like what's the value of the promotion in, let's say, the first year?
It's definitely, it varies. We have clients in tech who make more than 6 figures increase in salary. Others who are in different industries that is more like a $10,000 to $30,000 increase. But typically, they're seeing 2 to 10 times the return on investment in the first year of their investment in us.
Oh, cool. Well, that's great. That's really, really cool. Okay, love it. So what are the problems as you see it then? So you said you're at around 950K a year. So we're just scratching the underbelly of $100,000 a month. You want to get to where?
We want to be at about 200K a month is our goal right now. 150 to 200K a month would be really ideal for us.
And then would you be happy just maintaining that, or is there another level? So let's say where you're at right now is phase 1, 200K a month is phase 2. Is there a phase 3, or just improve what you're doing at phase 2 and stay there?
There is a phase 3 that we have kind of on the whiteboard, and that involves additional programs. It involves some more business oriented things that we want to do in the future. But we're just focused primarily on scaling this.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. So we're trying to double what you're doing or just over double. So you've attempted to do this, I presume. So what feels like it's holding you back? What feels like the problem?
We were on our way in the middle of or early 2025, late 2024. We were having several six-figure months, and then everything just broke. And we had an Instagram DM funnel. Um,
Right.
our followers were 22 cents a follower. It went to $5 a follower.
Right.
And our organic content was not being shown to our clients. Worse, or our followers, and worse, our followers were seeing ads for our competitors now. So we abandoned the entire Instagram DM funnel for a webinar funnel, which is why I'm here. Um, and I've been doing live webinars since August. And
Yep.
the webinar is now definitely, I think we've got the live webinar pretty dialed in. We had some
Yep.
great show up numbers and cost of show up yesterday specifically, but um, we're getting really good people on calls, but they're not closing. And yeah, we've moved to the push pull call method. Still just not getting people to come forward. They get on the calls, they feel great, they know this is exactly what they need, and they just can't quite get there. And this is true not just from my sales team, which are very experienced, but it's also true for me
Right.
as the founder.
What? So even some of the calls that you're taking, there's resistance there.
I have about a 15% close rate, and my sales team is less than 10%. We used to be a year and a half ago closer to 30%, 30 to 35%.
Okay. Right. So we're gonna circle back to that. Um, we're not going to touch it just yet, but we will come back to that. Okay, got it. So Instagram strategy was working, was crushing it, looked scalable, everything broke, which sometimes happens with different marketing strategies, and so you kind of decided to pivot, and now live webinars is what you're doing, and your ability to do more with live webinars is restricted in I think what you're saying is it's not that you couldn't scale the webinar per se, but it's that currently sales are not performing, and so you're hesitant to scale the webinar if sales is underperforming. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, we feel like I wonder if the call to action is the right call to action at the end of our webinar, and I think I'm
Mm,
a little concerned that like we're taking people from an ad to a
yeah.
webinar, so it's cold traffic to webinar. They
Yeah.
get on with an hour for me. I preach and preach the gospel to them, and then they get on a call, and I just don't know if that's enough nurture compared to what we used to do.
Okay, got it. So, and this is a really important question. If sales were good and you were wanting to double the amount of people that you're getting registered for your webinars, you feel you could do that.
Yes.
Great.
Yeah.
So then, okay, so that's really telling because that shows us that for us to be able to double the business, because ultimately when we look at trying to double where we're currently at, which is what we're trying to do with you, there are so many moments in the business model that could cause the double, right? Like you can double close percentage and you double the business. You could double the amount of people that are booking calls and you double the business. You can double the amount of leads coming in and you double the business. So if you feel confident that you could double on the front to get leads in, then there's already a path laid to be able to double the business if we can fix the reasons why you're apprehensive to do that. So that's really useful. So it feels like we have to focus today then on webinar to sales. No, actually, there's one more piece because before I dive into that being the thing we focus on, what are we saying to them on the webinar? How are we then positioning them booking a call to increase buyer intent when they're on the phone call? Before we do that, I do actually just have to make sure from someone registering for the webinar and attending the presentation, do you have any issues there in the funnel? Does it feel like your show up rate is about what it should be?
It is now. It's something we've been dialing in over the last 6 months. The
Right.
last 2 weeks, our show up rate has been phenomenal,
Mm.
36% this week. And so we're almost at KPI. It was in the
Mm.
teens before. And that's been a lot of work on the email and SMS sequence between
Right.
sign up and show up.
Okay. So just very quickly then, if you don't mind, obviously we don't need to go into a specific week or specific month. Just on average over the last little bit, how many webinar registrations are you getting per week? Are you doing a weekly live? Is that what you're doing?
Correct. A weekly live on Tuesdays.
Okay. So how many people each week are you getting registered?
So we had on average about 400 signups over the past 2 weeks, and we've had on average about 120 show ups over the past 2 weeks, and so about a
Okay.
32% show up rate,
Yeah.
and it's trending
And
upwards.
well, that's good. And what percentage? Sorry, what percentage of these registrants are coming from paid ads? Almost all of it.
Almost all of it, yeah. There's some organic, but very little.
Mm. Okay, so what kind of cost per lead are you getting into the live webinar then?
Yeah, somewhere around $12 per sign up, and
Mm.
about $30 per show up.
Got it. By the way, that's good. Just so you know, when you're trying to scale with paid ads to cold traffic to get webinar registrations for $12 is kind of where you'd want to be and slightly better. So that's good.
Awesome.
Um, so 30 something to get an attendee. Fine. Okay. Next question. Of the 120 that attend the webinar, how many of them are booking calls at the end?
So on average, about 13 are booking a call. So maybe just a little bit over 10%.
Okay. How long is the presentation, by the way?
It's about 1 hour.
Perfect.
The presentation is typically 50 minutes, and then I have 10 minutes of kind of a pitch, and then Q&A from there that lasts sometimes 30 minutes.
Yeah, got it. So around about 10%, which is kind of where you'd want it to be. You know that from our training, right? We're looking for 10% of attendees to book. So you where you need to be on that front. So then that's putting your cost per call booking at what, about $300 a call booking,
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah. 340-ish. Yes.
Got it. And then how do the numbers break down from there? Because let's say, for example, 10 people book a call. How many of those are you canceling?
Um, one or two, not very many cancel it. We don't cancel very many calls because we have a pretty strict questionnaire, and we funnel a lot of people who are unqualified off to a book offer.
Ah, right. So that this changes the conversation slightly. So at the webinar, when you do the call to action, they fill out the application form first, and only if qualified do they move down the path to book the call.
And we explain all that on the webinar, correct?
Great. That makes these numbers even better, by the way, because 10% of people on the webinar booking a call, that would be what we're shooting for if that's the first thing that happens. So, for example,
Okay.
they click the link, they book a call. Then after they book a call, you do the application form. And that's why I ask, how many do you cancel? Because typically you'd say, well, of 10 people that book a call, maybe one or two of them I'm going to cancel that didn't even bother to fill out the form. Now it's 8. Then of those that filled out the form, how qualified was the form? And you might end up canceling a couple more off the back of that. So now you're down to 6. So actually, of what would be 6 for me is already 10 for you. So your percentage of people booking a call off the back of the webinar is really good because you're now getting $300 roughly per what we would call a qualified call booking.
Okay.
Whereas for me and my business and other clients of ours, we would be looking at the initial cost per call booking, and then once we've cancelled some, had some no shows, what was the cost per qualified call booked? So you're
Okay.
you're you're looking really strong on that. Then I imagine you've got a pretty decent show up rate then on those sales calls because they're already quite qualified, right?
94%.
Okay, so you book 10 calls, 9 of them are showing up at least. You know,
Yeah.
nine and half a person somehow.
Hmm.
so, so you got 9. Okay, and then you're closing your 10 or 15%, depending on whether you or your sales team member is closing them. So now we're down to help me with the math here. What's the value per call booked? If you divide the revenue generate, so let's say we had 10 calls booked, you're closing one of those, it's $10,000. So that'd be like $1,000 value per call, we would say, right?
Yeah, our AOV or average order value is 10.3K, and that's just because sometimes people buy a little bit of this or that in addition to the call. So um,
Yeah.
10K is 10K is 10K. We don't change the
Yeah.
price much. Sometimes we charge. Actually, I take it back, John. We do offer a firm to certain people for
Right.
financing, and those deals are at 11K to cover the cost of a firm.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's
No, that, no, that,
10.3K.
yeah, yeah, that's perfect. So then what I like to do, and this is a really important lesson, is when it comes to a call booking funnel, like we're talking about here, two of the most important metrics in the entire process is cost to acquire a qualified call booking and then value per call. Because those are the two numbers that we want to be as far away from each other as possible, because that's showing what the ROI is on the ad spend. So if you're taking 10 calls and you're closing, let's say, one of them, well, then $10,000 for the one sale divided by the 10 calls is a roughly $1,000 value per call. And it's costing you $300 to acquire that call. So you're 3xing on your ad spend. But of course, we still want to get these numbers up a little bit because we've got expense in there for sales team commission, you've got cost to deliver, you've got all these other things that I realize that you've got. So obviously we want to get that up a little bit more. So what we need to do is we need to increase the buyer intent before they get on the phone with you. That's the first thing that needs to happen here. Because if we can do that, and if we can get your close percentage, to double again, let's say maybe going from 10% right now to 30% with the same funnel is going to be a bit too much of a stretch, a bit too much of a tall order, but perhaps doubling it isn't. To get 2 sales out of 10 as opposed to 1 sale out of 10 would make all the difference, because now we're $2,000 value per sale, which against a $300 cost per call booking, that's actually pretty good. So if we can double that, that would be good. So that's one thing we're going to focus on. Something else, though, that we may focus on, depending on what you tell me to this, is what about the back end of the business? Are you following up with leads that come through, booked a call but didn't close? You got your pipeline building. What about promotions back out to your email list to bring them back through a process? Implementing what I would call a gift box funnel, which you've heard me talk about before, I imagine, where you take the same offer, but you wrap it up differently and present it again. Because the reason I'm asking this is I mentioned at the beginning of the call, there's one of 7 things that it's probably going to be why you can't scale. It's either, number 1, traffic, haven't got enough traffic or not the right traffic. Number 2, lead flow. You either just can't get that traffic to convert to leads or for the decent price. Number 3, funnel conversion. You're not converting those leads through to the next step. Number 4 is sales conversion, and we're talking about that here now. Number 5 is the back end, which I just asked you about. And then the other 2 are outside of the marketing and sales process, because number 6 is people, the salespeople you've got, the other people in the business, or number 7 is process, the systems and the process behind growing and scaling. So it's usually one of those 7. We've identified sales conversion, so we'll spend some time on that. Tell me a little bit about the back end, just so I know if we need to focus there a bit or not.
So we didn't have an email list until about 6 months ago. Everything was on Instagram. We had 150,000 followers there. We started the webinar funnel. We created an email list, and then we learned some really hard lessons about email deliverability, which
Right.
we've now solved. So we have a list of about 4,000 people. These are all people who registered for the webinar, may or may not have attended. They're all tagged. And
Right.
all we've really delivered to them has been, we did 1 or 2 campaigns for an event here and there around the New Year's, and then other than that, it's just been here's my weekly YouTube video, and so it's like a value email once a week. So we haven't really activated that back end selling yet.
Right, got it. So with an email list of about 4,000 people, we're going to quickly attack this one first because it'll take a little bit shorter. So we can hit this one on the head and then we can move back to where we were. What you want to do is think about your back end email marketing efforts as like a promotional calendar. So every month you want to be doing something to the email list. You're providing value, which you're already doing, back to your YouTube videos. So that's great. You're stacking the value, emails, multiple emails over the course of the month, providing just purely value. But then you do need to do some kind of monthly activation where you're activating a few people from your email list into clients. So how that would look is for an email list of about 4,000 people, you could kind of do one of two things. You could either do a VSL funnel because they opted into a webinar. So now you got their attention with the webinar, but it might not be what converts them. The way I like to think of it is like what got them in might not be what gets them to buy. So they register for the webinar. That's great. Something got their attention. They like the sound of it. You hooked them in. But then they're just not the type of person that sticks around for the whole webinar and gets to the very end and things like that. And so then if they get an email from you, taking them to a VSL where they can very quickly and clearly hear and see the offer that you present, that's where they might say, oh, right, I didn't realize Tom does that. And that sounds amazing. Let me book a call and explore that. And it might have just been that particular individual never got to the end of your webinar to hear the offer, So that's, of course, the whole thing with a gift box funnel that we've talked about, a few times. It's like, okay, they came for the webinar and there was an offer out the other end. So now the webinar was the first packaging. So now I'm going to give them a different gift box. I'm going to take the same offer. It's still to book a call and talk about our 10K offer, but I'm going to put it in the gift box of a VSL and now present that. And some people might go, oh, that one looks nice. Open it up and take action. So that's the first option. Second option, though, is that you just do another live webinar specifically for your email list, and it's on a slightly different topic. Because again, you kind of activate them again, differently that way. So I sell the same program, right? It's still my momentum coaching program. We still help the same people, coaches and experts trying to scale a business. We teach them marketing, sales systems, all the stuff we're talking about here. But I could chop that up in 20 different ways. And I could do 20 different webinars. And what's going to grab the attention of one person might not grab the attention of another. So every month, I would want you to just think about doing something promotional to the list. And that's how you're going to be able to start to generate a few extra clients per month. And that starts to take you out of the territory, which is, dare I say, a little dangerous, which is when you're fully dependent on paid ads. That makes me nervous if your whole model is built on paid ads, because you could, I hope you don't, but you could find yourself in a similar situation to your Instagram before, where it's like you've just nailed it. You've got a model that is crushing it. And it's like, yes, we're ready to scale. And then what happens? The rug is pulled from underneath your feet. We could find that happens with paid ads here, and it's like, we just got the numbers where they need to be. We're just going to start scaling. And then the rug's pulled from under you again. So it's also about having, okay, we've got front end acquisition, currently paid traffic into a webinar. Great. But then we need to have the back end ticking along, which pumps up the revenue. So we're not fully dependent on the front. And then, of course, you talk about other traffic strategies, which we've discussed before: buy it, build it, borrow it. So I just hit you with a few things there. I'm going to pause for any thoughts that you have before I go to the next bit.
So we have been building organic on YouTube specifically. Been posting videos for 3 years. Have about a 5,000 person audience, and we're hoping to keep that growing.
Yep.
And I've also found recently a lot of success organically on LinkedIn, which kind of makes sense for our demographic. And so we are definitely building an audience. Instagram, we have this massive audience, but it's not quite sure how to activate it anymore. And so there is some organic there, but we've been so focused on dialing in this paid traffic funnel that we're not putting a ton of effort into the organic like we should. And so to your point, I'm taking away an action to specifically spend more time and energy with our email list than we do. That's because we own that audience, which is the one place where we do, and that makes sense to me.
Yeah, right. Well, just to kind of let you into my world and my business for a little bit, I've got the goal of 2026 being the year where our organic lead generation and revenue production our organic stuff outperforms our paid stuff. Like that's where I want to get to this year, because paid is still good, and there's still, some results to be had there, and you can still scale, and it's all good, but it's not going to last forever. And the organic stuff is where, we kind of bolt on these extra pieces so that we're just a little bit more bulletproof, and can pivot a bit quicker if something on one form of traffic generation starts to struggle.
Yeah, and we're definitely taking that away. We going through your momentum program. One of the biggest things for us, in fact, I have it on my whiteboard, is really dialing in our email marketing, email messaging. So we are doing we started with just the weekly value email. That was new to us since we joined your program, and then now, having gone through a lot of the training, I can see we probably need to be making additional offers. This is why, I've asked questions about like segmentation and things like that, and understand, the way to do that now. So
Yeah.
that's definitely it's a high priority for us to be. And I like the idea of sending people who don't come to the webinar to a VSL. I did used to have a VSL funnel, and so
Right.
that was warm traffic to VSL was what that was. But I can definitely build an updated VSL and send people who don't come to the webinar to that. Or we've also talked about doing like a masterclass, kind of like a challenge type thing.
Mm.
Once a month. Something that's both internal and external. But we just haven't quite locked in on one thing just yet.
Okay, so good stuff. We're going to focus on email a bit more. We're going to implement gift box funnels, and we're going to do at least something promotional every month with the email list. That's great. So let's focus perhaps the rest of our time then on making sure that the webinar to sales call process is as strong as it can be. So when you get to the end of the webinar, because I trust your content's good, my team have checked it, it's all good. So how strong is the call to action? Like, do you just introduce the ability to book a call with you with a light touch on what the offer is, with a bit of an offer tease? Do you go into great detail? What's the play there?
Yeah, so the whole webinar is pretty heavy-handed. I'm pretty evangelical in my webinars, and
Mm.
so the whole message is you need to take action. You need to take action. I deal with information gatherers or action takers, and which one are you? And at the end, the action to take is if you're the right kind of person. Fill in this questionnaire, and I'm going to show you what we do. And so I explain the program for maybe 90 seconds, just kind of high level walk through what they learn. And then from there, it's once they hear that, we send out a book a call, and we explain that you may not qualify for this call. That's okay. We have other
Right.
resources for you. And so even if you're not sure, go ahead and fill in the questionnaire. And so it's pretty heavy handed, and there's one call to action. It's one URL. It's one do this, and that'll take you where you belong in our ecosystem kind of approach.
Got it. Okay. So there's two thoughts going through my head, and I'll explain both, and we can decide where we should focus. Because what we want to do as best we can, if it's not already being done to the level it should, is we want to increase buying intent, not just interest in the call, not just interest in your topic, but actually increase buying intent for the specific offer you have before they ever get on the phone call. Like, that's one of the key pieces that we're trying to achieve. And so we can either do that on the webinar itself. So at the end of the webinar, when you do that little, pitch there, you actually explain. And if you end up going down this particular path off the back of the questionnaire, here's a bit about the offer that we might be talking about. And so then you go into more detail, and you start to build a picture of what it's looking like, and you build their buying intent. The issue with that, though, is you start to lose a few people. You further qualify some, and they become more interested, and maybe have more buying intent out the other end. But you also lose a few people that now won't fill out the questionnaire because they go, well, I might have filled it out to explore what you got, but now I know what you got. I'm deciding I don't want it without even speaking to you.
Mm.
That can become the issue. The second option that I think might be the better thing to do is that once we don't change the webinar, and I'm very inclined to recommend this because at the moment it's not broken. And I don't want to fix what's not broken. I don't want you to start tinkering with the webinar presentation and changing things. And because right now you are getting 10% of people on the webinar going through the questionnaire and landing at a call, which I'm very happy with. So I'm hesitant to touch it. So then the second thing would be we increase the buying intent once they've booked the call. They get through the questionnaire, they book the call, and now what are we saying to them between that moment and them getting on the phone? So help me understand. They get to the end of the questionnaire, they land at the route that allows them to book a call. What happens from there? They land straight at a calendar. Is there a video of you? Is like what's the information that they hit with?
So it's like a I think 4 or 5 minute video of me explaining. Okay, here's what's going to happen next. I'm excited for you to move forward. Treat this call like an interview. Those it's kind of the basics. It's not lecture-y or anything, but it's an 8 minute video where I'm kind of there's a bunch of B-roll of us at a live event together. There's and there's an explanation of the program beneath it in like if you go down below the video there's a whole scrolling page of like how the program works and what my goals for you are and things like that.
Right. Okay. So that sounds pretty good. What about success stories? Anything like that on the page?
Yeah, there's so we have a couple dozen YouTube testimonials that are all linked at the bottom of the page. There's also some like text blurbs from people who've had success as well.
Okay. Any more content from you, or it's more of a quicker page?
It's a reasonably long page. There's the video of me, and in the video I'm basically scrolling through this page, explaining what's in it, and then they can scroll down and see it for themselves. But it's an explanation of the program, my expectations for them, and then testimonials and success stories.
Got it. Okay, so that sounds pretty good. The only thing that I would add then is more content, because we find that from the moment where someone books the call, there'll be some people that you speak to that won't close, and you won't quite understand the reason why, and they're the annoying ones, because it's like, well, I know the reason you're giving me is not the real reason, but you're giving me that as the reason. So what else can I say? So we kind of just try to handle that as best we can by, if for some of these people, the reason they've not joined is because they just didn't trust you enough yet, right? Or they just haven't gotten to know you enough. Then if they booked the call, they've got through the questionnaire, they booked it, they're at the end of the road. The next thing is to wait for the call with you to happen, or a member of your sales team. So maybe that's tomorrow, the next day, whatever the case may be, 24, 48 hours. Well, now we may as well load them up. We may as well give them a buffet of information on that second page. It's like the only page in a funnel where it's okay to just be unreasonably detailed, because at all other parts in a funnel, we want it to be efficient to move them to the next piece, right? Whereas this is like the final page in the funnel. There's nothing else to do but wait for your call. So it already sounds like you understand that, because you've got a big long page, loads of stuff on there. What we like to do now on our call confirmed pages is we load them up with our best YouTube episodes, podcast recordings, all sorts of extra content, because the reality is if they watch none of it, well, I'm no worse off because it just wouldn't have been there, but they might skim through some of it. And some people will binge it. Yeah. We've had prospects that come on the phone and we ask them what they've seen as they come into this, and they start describing all those videos on that call confirm page, and they got stuck in the rabbit hole and just watched it all, consuming 5 or 6 hours worth of content from me, and those are the ones that are more likely to close. So I would take some of your other content pieces. Don't even overthink it. You could have a recording of the webinar that you've done again. So you could say, hey, you're here because you joined my most recent webinar. Well, because we were just on there, I don't have the recording of that exact session because we were just there. So what I do have is recording of last week's session that's similar to this, in case you want to go back over it, refresh on some of the points. It's all very similar. So some of them they will start to sell themselves more by just going back and re-listening to the exact same presentation again. Some people want to do that. I would take some of your YouTube content. I would take just some of your best Instagram stuff if you've got that as well. Load it up is what I would say. It's not gonna take you from 10% conversion to 20, but it's gonna play a part and it's gonna help. So I would add that more content on that page.
Okay.
Any questions on that?
No, that makes perfect sense, and I've got lots of ideas for what we can put there.
Okay, good. So then here's the bad news. So far, everything's looking okay. I'm helping you with tweaks, but not anything major, because everything up until the moment they get on the phone with you is sounding about right. So then the problem is that they're just not closing when they're on the phone. So tell me about that. Like you were at 30% conversion, you're now at 15. It's halved. It's been like that for long enough now that the patterns hopefully are starting to emerge. What is it? Is it a money thing? Is it an intent thing? Is it a trust thing? Is it like what's happening?
Generally speaking, our demographic is people who make between 150 and 300K US a year that are looking to move from senior manager, director to vice president. And what we have seen increasingly over the last 6 months is we are getting lots and lots of people who are in transition, laid off, let go, outsourced. And so those people have time, but they don't have money.
Yeah.
And we have great conversations with them, and we have nothing to offer them other than a $10,000 program, and they're in scarcity. They can't invest in themselves when they're in scarcity, and I understand that. I empathize with that. So we tell people who are laid off to fill in the application, and then we shunt them to either our book funnel or to a course or something, or a video or something like that. But I'm feeling that what it feels like on these calls is they really like what they've seen in the webinar. But that's the one data point that they have until this sales call. And then the sales call is a second data point for them. But those are the only two data points. And then they come to the third call. For my closers or my sales team, the show rate for the second call is really poor. And it could be that we're not implementing the push-pull program perfectly, although I have a pretty dialed script, and I have watched the recordings of my sales team, and they do a pretty good job of following the process. But there's just something that happens where they get spooked, they get cold feet, they don't want to get on a call where they know they're going to spend $10,000. And so I think there's a lot of fear in our demographic right now. And so our thinking is maybe we need to offer something in between as a bridge between that free webinar and a $10,000 coaching program. This worked great in 23 and 24. It just doesn't feel like it's working now.
Right. And so what so you said you don't have anything else to offer them. So you got the $10,000 offer, and then that's it. There's no extra things.
I have a book funnel with a couple mini courses as order bumps and upsells, and really that's our entire product catalog right now.
Okay, so you could add what I would call a stepping stone offer, and offer that as a downsell to people that aren't ready for the 10K thing. But I will tell you what my concern is with this, and then together we can decide if it's the right thing for you to do. Because it's not a given that you just do this. Like it's really not. The concern with it is particularly because you've got a sales team. When you introduce stepping stone offers, you find that some people on the sales team offer it too prematurely, and you end up actually making your ROI even worse. Because what ends up happening, whether they realize it or not, someone who may have ended up doing the 10K thing has decided to do the downsell option instead of the 10K thing because your salesman or saleswoman introduced it too prematurely. It's like that because the option is there, they try to push the 10K thing, and too quickly they go, oh, well, I'm going to lose the sale, so I'll pivot over here to the 1K thing or the 2K thing. And had that not been an option, they would have probably progressed with the 10K. So that's the concern. That's the issue with the sales team.
And John, I can tell you that we did try that. We had a downsell to a 3K version of the program that basically removed the coaching. they still got everything, the course, the community, some of the other things that we do that cost us money, but they didn't get the coaching. That
Right.
downsell, I don't think we sold one of those in the maybe a couple dozen times we offered that. So we know that like going
Mm.
to a downsell in that range 1 to 3K doesn't really move the needle for the
Right.
people we're talking to. What we've been thinking about, and I'd love to hear your thought on this, is that we've been thinking
Yeah.
about adding a membership and
Okay.
something that's like $297 a month.
Yep.
The sales team is actually very excited about this idea. They feel like they can be in the membership nurturing people and then
Yeah.
pull them up to so the 10K program becomes the back end ascension offer,
Mm.
and the membership is actually what I pitch. And I feel like I can send people directly to a checkout page from the webinar, given the energy that I feel at the end of the call with these folks for something that's in that price range. But I've never done that. And so I'm a little nervous
Mm.
about putting something like that together. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Um, I've got loads of thoughts on this, so I'm going to have to try to um, be careful I don't overshare and take the entire rest of this call for this. Um,
Okay.
Nothing wrong with the membership model. Let's just get that on the table. Nothing wrong with it. Great model. Other people use it very successfully. So on and so forth. Okay, so nothing inherently wrong with it. When it becomes a problem is when you introduce it to solve a problem. You're trying to solve a 10K sale problem, and by introducing this, the feeling is, oh, we could implement that relatively easily. It's a thing we plug in. And what ends up happening is you could find yourself in a position where you break the 100K a month model you've currently got by trying to introduce this. And a scenario that I've seen before and could play out with you is you go, right, we're switching the model. We're going to start to focus on the webinar that I've got right now that used to book calls. We're not going to change anything about the process that gets them to that point, but I am just going to redo the end of the webinar and I'm going to make an offer instead of the questionnaire. And you try to sell the 297 and you've got two issues now. Number one is potentially you've cut off your 10K sale model. So it's like, oh shoot, suddenly we're not getting 10Ks in when we were before. We're getting 9 to 10 of them a month. Now we're getting none. But furthermore, you now have the issue of trying to balance ad spend against 297 a month sales. And typically it's going to take you a few months to recover because the 297 sale is probably not going to cover ad spend or not quite. So now your cash flow is all messed up too, because now you're waiting for month two, month three to kick in, and you're working out your numbers, and it's like you. I guess what I'm saying is the risk is you could break it the good part of your model to try and implement this. My advice to you would be if you're going to do it, is do it in a way where it does not affect the current business that you've got. So keep the model, keep the webinar, don't touch that stuff, and instead you bolt it on in a way that is that doesn't cause issue. So I'll give you some examples. Number one, you could do a second webinar, whole new webinar, completely different. In fact, you can redo the content so that it foreshadows a membership. So the content is seeding the fact that a community and ongoing support, because that is the right thing. So it can foreshadow the offer better anyway, and then you have a whole new webinar, and you run that as retargeting ads. So people who have seen your stuff, been in your world, watched your things, you push them to this. So now you've got a second front end funnel. It's not affecting the first one. You've just bolted it on. If it works, great. You pump more ad spend to it. And eventually it might become your front end loss leader. But if it doesn't work, you can turn it off and nothing changed over here. Second way you can test it is your sales team do use it as a downsell, but they have to use it playing to certain rules. So, for example, it's a follow up offer once the prospect gets off the phone. They're not allowed to offer it on the phone, for example, because then they have to take the 10K sale literally as far as they can. And only if it's clear the person can't do it, you jump off the phone. Now, part of your model, part of your strategy is a text, a WhatsApp, an email, a phone call, whatever. Hey, Samantha, we connected last week. Wanted to check in with you, see how you're doing. Also, I just got news from Tom. We've got something crazy. We were talking about the offer, the 10K program. You wanted the content. We've just found a way to basically get you access to everything for about 30 times cheaper. It's ludicrous. I'd love to just have a chance to explain that to you. So now they're back in the process to start a whole new sales process, not hijacking the 10K one. So you could test it that way, see if it's working as a downsell, as a follow-up. The third way you do it is a promotion to the list. So you test it by doing one of your monthly promotions is to now test out selling a 297 a month membership and see if that works. And the way that I would think about this, Tom, is don't expect it not to work, but don't be surprised if it doesn't. So just have that mentality over it, where it's like, I'm gonna try this 297 a month. I'm not gonna pin all my hopes on it. I'm gonna do a test promotion to the list and just see if they like it, see if they take to it. If we sell 10, 20 on the first go, wow, okay, we might be onto something, and maybe this can become 50 and become 100 and get some really good users in here. But if you do the first promotion and it's just not converting, people aren't biting, you had one random sign up, then the worst case scenario is you hit the refund button on that one person and you've saved your time delivering on it if it just wasn't quite pulling. So I guess that would be my main advice, is not a bad idea, but I would just be very careful with how you implement it.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I like the idea of making the offer of a membership to someone who's gone through the sales process and now is, on the other side of saying no. So it's kind of like not a reoffer, but an alternative offer that starts, like you said, a kind of a second sales cycle with them.
Yep.
And we did intend to make an offer, use a campaign, email campaign to our email list to kind of seed the first folks to membership. And I hear exactly what you're saying about how I could break the model that we've been running for 3 years now, with instead of the call to action for the webinar be book a call to join my membership. So it's interesting. I probably have to think a little bit about, because we do. Yeah, it's interesting. I could also focus primarily on organic to membership, so I can be doing content on Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube that's really pushing the membership, but the cold traffic to webinar funnel starts them on the 10K offer, and then they fall into the email campaigns around the membership. Would that work?
That would actually feel like we're doing it the wrong way around, even, because for your warm market, they're already warmer, so going straight to the 10K is an easier jump. Whereas, if anything, to introduce a stepping stone would be trying to satisfy cold traffic. It would be saying, you're icy cold, I need to warm you up a little bit and put you in the microwave of my 297 a month membership. And once you're warm enough, you're ding and you'll pop out and you're ready for the 10K thing. So that would be that way around. So if you were going to be doing content on social media, to start to just open up that conversation again, content's flowing, people are inquiring. Actually, those would be the people to go straight to your webinar. They still use your webinar as a qualifier, but then they go straight to the 10K. So I don't know if that would be the way to do it, honestly. Here's another question for you though. Of the 100, you said 120. Let's just say 100. You have 100 people that attend the webinar. What? But 10% of them end up at booking a call. But how many of them do the questionnaire?
About 15 to 16.
So and then currently, a chunk of them are going down as a qualified call and they're being invited to book a call. And then where did the other people go?
Right now, they're going to an email list with, hey, we might have something for you soon, or here, go check out our book. Is right. I will say that, I'm sorry.
No, go on, go ahead.
several months ago when we first started this webinar funnel, I was getting as many as 30% people booking a call, but we didn't have the questionnaire, and it was so I was moving people to basically come learn the three things you should do next in your career.
Mm.
And that was bringing in a significantly more, a larger number of people. So now I'm explaining that they're going to get on a call to learn these three things, but they're also, we're going to talk about this coaching program, and so I think I could like open up the number of calls that we get booked from this webinar.
Mm.
If it just depends on what the call to action and the offer actually are.
I don't think you should open up the the doorway for more calls to be booked, quite frankly,
Okay.
because at the moment where you've currently got it, the numbers are nice enough, and also sales conversion isn't strong enough on the call. So then to have even more people booking calls, potentially even more unqualified people coming through, sales conversion could just struggle, even more so.
Right.
But that second path where let's call them unqualified leads would go, that would be where you'd also put the 297 membership.
Okay.
So you'd say, hey, listen, thanks so much for your interest in potentially, working with me. We've got a couple of options given what you've said in the questionnaire, and I appreciate you giving honest answers. Thank you for that. The best way I can actually help you for where you're at right now is going to be this particular membership that I have. And I want to make this an absolute no-brainer for you right now to come and be a part of this. And so here's an offer I'm going to make for you right here, right now on this page. And you do a special price, set of bonuses, and they join right then and there. So that would be another path that I would route them. But
Okay.
I would also probably change one or two of the questions on the questionnaire, because at the moment you said you're getting people on the phone who are between jobs and struggling, and so I wonder if there's a question that we could rearrange or start to ask that identifies that before you even get on the phone.
Yeah, we do ask if you're in transition or not. We also ask, can you afford, our coaching options are between 3 and 12K. Is that something that you can afford? People will tell us they have difficulty earning that.
Right.
And so we have, I think, three financial qualification
Mm.
questions. And if they get two of them wrong, that's when they go to the list. We have from time to time. So we look at the questionnaires for people who get rejected from the call, and sometimes we pull people to a call. Other times we see who's booked a call and sometimes pull them back down to, hey, this isn't right for you.
Yeah.
So we have some like manual hand on who gets calls or not a little bit. We have that ability.
Okay. So in conclusion with that offer, then it's not that it's a bad idea. You could probably still test that, but I would take it with a pinch of salt. I wouldn't put all your eggs in one basket, expecting it to absolutely crush. It could be another thorn in your side trying to make these numbers work now, and now you've got two funnels that you're trying to scale, and you've doubled the workload. We're trying to double the business, and you're just giving yourself twice as much work to do. So
Yeah.
that may, so just tread carefully on that one. The other way to think of this, if you don't do the 297 downsell, is that you basically say, well, look, we're going to just focus on if we're currently 3 to 1 on ad spend with this particular funnel, then if you were able to top up client generation in other areas of the business, i.e., the back end, the pipeline, things like this, then you could probably afford to spend at least 50% more than you currently are right now, and add 50% to the business by just upping the ad spend. And just, I'm not saying that this is the ideal scenario, but accepting the 10 or 15% conversion and building the business around that. Like that would also be another option, because you could end up spending more energy, time, and effort trying to fix the conversion problem on the phone than you could do scaling the business by adding everything that's needed around that conversion. I'm sure you've thought about that. So where does your head go when you think about that as an option?
Yeah, I think that like I feel like the what we did really well on Instagram was nurture, and so we had someone in DMs talking to people, and everyone who's joined said, when you reached out to me and talked to me about my challenges, that made me want to lean in. We're not doing that with this community, and I think that we could with email. We could definitely do
Right.
better at nurturing our community, even after they've watched a webinar, whether they've booked a call and had one or not. There's 4,000 people we could be talking to.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably like I'm trying to solve the nurture problem here. I feel like I'm trying to solve the middle of funnel that we don't really have set up correctly right now. And so email makes sense that we would do it that way. Of course, my organic channels, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, um, we could be doing retargeting of content to them there. So I
Mm.
know that like there's definitely something that needs to be in between for a lot of people, just more trust than what they're getting from just 1 hour with me.
Yeah. Got it. And what do you do with your with the people that you speak to that aren't ready to do it right now? Do they go into a pipeline? Do you follow back up with them? What's your sales process for those people? Or is it just, okay, got our 10 or 15% onto the new leads? Like what's the process?
Yeah, generally speaking, once so the sales team follows up with them until they just stop responding, and at that point they go into cold on our
Mhm.
CRM, and then occasionally, about once a month, the sales team will go into CRM and reach out to people from a little ways back to see how things are, if anything's changed. Our favorite question to ask is, are you in the same situation you were 12 months ago?
Yeah,
If
right.
so, maybe we should have another conversation.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So you are doing some stuff there. So that's good. Okay. So then the final thing that I think will be good for us to talk about then is you said you think your guys are doing the push and the pull properly and you've listened to a few of them, but then you said that your show rate on the second call is very, very low. So help me understand what that is. So you have 10 people that you have the first conversation with, the push call, and then of those that you're expecting to speak to again, how many of them show up? 10 pull calls booked. How many show up on the pull call?
Yeah, out of 10 calls, maybe four show up for my sales team. For me, when I took a couple dozen of these myself,
Right.
I was getting 100% show up for the second call. But my
Mm.
sales team's more like 40% showing up for the second call.
That's goodness me. It's like taking an hour to get to this, which potentially is the biggest. Well, no, which potentially is the biggest thing, because to have 40% of people showing up for that second conversation is not nearly as high as it should be. So that tells me that if that's who they're pushing through to a pull call, if they're saying of the people I spoke to over this period of time, 10 of them I'm expecting to meet again on a pull call, and four of them show up, they were not fully sold.
Okay.
Their objections were not handled. They were not tied down. If they were, like, you're gonna have one or two people that ghost you, go a bit quiet, get cold feet or whatever else, but 8 out of 10 people for that pull call you would
Okay.
expect to speak to again. 8 out of 10. So you're currently experiencing half of that. So that glaringly obvious to me. I'm like, okay, they're just not, they're not getting it. And you know what, here's where it gets really tricky, and this is, it's so frustrating and so annoying because you just wish it was more obvious. But you can listen in on one of your sales team's conversations and you can say, but everything sounded good, like they said all the right things. And if you imagine the sales script that we give you, Tom, is like the piste going down the mountain. Do you ski or snowboard?
I wish. I'm not very good at it, but I try. I live in Colorado and I try.
Okay, right. So, like, going from the top of the mountain down, like the sales script is the piece. Well, what I say to my sales guys is, look, you can go off piste a little bit, that's fine. Go off on a tangent if you feel like there's something to talk about, but you have to come back on piste. And we got to end, going down the mountain. So you can listen in on a call and you can go, everything sounded like okay. They went through the detective section, they asked good questions, we got some good answers, and we went to the push pitch, and it can sound good, but if they're not showing up for the second call, they didn't uncover the real reason. They either didn't uncover the real reason why or press deep enough on that to invoke the proper emotional connection to the reason why, um, or they didn't handle objections. They didn't, during the detective section, they didn't dig deep enough. Might sound good. It's like an onion. It's like there's these questions they need to ask, and we need to get to the root of the onion. And it might be that they like asked a few questions, peeled off a couple of layers, and they were, yeah, look, I asked those questions, we peeled a bit away, and then moved to the next one. And then you're listening to the call, going, yep, they peeled that back, they peeled that back, they peeled that back. That's all good. But maybe they just never quite hit the root of each one, and that would be the reason they don't show up. Like this is like really really important that we talk about this, because if we really got to the root, and then we handled their biggest objections, and we truly got the tie downs, which, if I can just remind you of the three tie downs. Tie down number one is their desire to do this. So they hear the offer, and they want it. Like, they actually friggin' want it. So irrespective of price, they're sold on this thing. Like, they have to work with Tom and the team, you know? So that's the first thing. Sold on the process and the program. Number two tie down is the price. So what payment option would they do if we were to do this? And you figure out payment plan, and you make sure that you've actually got that in your notes. And then number three is start date. When would they start, and is there any reason why they couldn't do this right now? Those three tie downs, if done properly, there shouldn't be a reason why they disappear and don't show up on the second call, outside of some unicorn situations. You could have had an incredible conversation, nailed every part of this, and you will just have the random 10% that just get off the call, and it's like they're in a different world. They're in one world with you on the phone, like getting really excited for this, and as soon as they leave the call, they've got like chronic fear or whatever, you know. But that is a small percentage, not 60%. So that would be the piece that I think you need to work on with your team. And it might just be that sales used to be easier before, and it's now harder to dig down. So you and your team might be going, but this script used to work. Like, this was the thing, and it was fun. And it might just be that actually there's new questions to ask, there's new layers to peel back, the industry's moved on, there's more pain to uncover, more objections to handle that we never used to have to handle, and we just haven't formulated those questions in the call. Like, it might just be like relearning the process, you know. This feels big to me, just so you know. This feels really big that you've only got 4 out of 10 showing up. I think this could be really important.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I think one of the things that maybe we haven't reacted to well enough in our entire process is competition. We're so used to being teaching people what coaching actually is, but now Meta serves all of the people we work with 16 ads for my competitors. And I think, as I'm thinking through what are the typical objections for not joining a second call, I need to compare this to something else. I have a friend who has a coaching program. I need to look at this. And so those are the ones that kind of disappear on us. And
Right.
we never really quite figure out what's going on. So it could be that we're just not doing enough work to compare ourselves, which I could do on that landing page before they book a call, as an example.
Yeah, you could do that, but and you could also do it during. There's a part of our sales script that you'll be familiar with, which is creating doubt, right?
Yeah.
And it's at that piece in the sales script where you can start to, not directly trash talk your competitors, we're not name dropping anyone, but you can start to allude to the false sense of security that's out there in the marketplace. And you are indirectly talking about the solutions that competitors provide, and you're kind of weaving it into conversation as to why that's not actually the solution. I'll give you an example of what that is for us. We're a coaching company. We're not done for you. So sometimes people come to us and they want a done for you solution. And so we make it clear in the marketing material that leads to this that we're not done for you. But also on the call, when we get to the create doubt part, we touch on it. And we touch on it before they bring it up. Because this is where, okay, so there's a lot of power in this, by the way. It's subtle, but it's actually really powerful, because if we wait until they ask about it, like, oh, but I'm looking for a done for you thing, and do you guys do that? And then we say, well, actually, no, we don't. We're a coaching business. And if we try to handle it at that point, because they put it on the table, in their mind, it is that we're now just objecting to it, and it's
Yeah.
like now we're doing this kind of back and forth. But they brought the issue up, and so of course we're going to try to defend it, and that's what's going on in their brain. Whereas, you probably heard before, Tom, there's such power if a prospect comes up with something in their own head.
Yeah.
It's so much more powerful if they came up with the thought. So by getting ahead of some of these things, you actually further lean into that side of it. So for example, before they ever bring up like done for you, if I'm like, I don't know, let's say I'm validating a point that they just made, they're like, I really want to learn, this, and I validate it, followed up by creating doubt. So I go, look, you know what, Tom, I'm so encouraged that you just said that, because to learn X, Y, Z is critical to making this whole thing work. And it's actually one of the reasons why a lot of people stay stuck. You know what I find interesting? Some people lean into this idea of like done for you. It's like, if only I could just find the right person to just do this for me, all my problems will be solved. And it sounds like you're smart enough to realize that's not the answer, because you can't just look for someone to do it for you. Then you don't know how it's been built. You can't manage it. You're dependent on someone else. If it goes wrong, you have no idea what's happened. It's like giving you a fish, not teaching you to fish. It's just not the right way to do it. It sounds like you're switched on to that, which is great. So anyway, and we move on. So it's like I've said these things, and now they're it's a different conversation in their head than if we wait till the end of the call and handle it as an objection. I've got ahead of it, and it's so much more powerful. And I don't even have to, by the way, I just gave an example there of where I actually do draw attention to it. And I say, look, it sounds like you're smart enough to realize that done for you is not the option. So that was a more direct approach to it. But I could also just, without drawing parallels to them, I could just talk about the issues with done for you. And now they're rationalizing it in their own head and going, oh, do you know what? Yeah, John just said that. And actually, I did think this the other day. And no, I now think that that's not the right solution. They've had the thought. So it's really powerful stuff. So it just might be some of these things. It's like just reacting to where the market's at right now, new objections to handle, new things to process. I would go through your sales script and spend a whole day on this and just like look at that sales script and just start to like repiece it together, but using historical data as well. So like, where did we used to close, and who were the people coming in, and what were the reasons they joined? The people that are joining now, what reasons are they joining? How are they vocalizing it? And how can I feed that into the script again now? And for the people that are saying no, like, what are the reasons they're saying no? Like, what's coming up? And I'm building that into the script now. Yeah. On top of everything else we talked about a few tweaks throughout the whole process, and do your email stuff. But this feels like a big one to me. Redoing that sales script and then retraining the team.
Yeah, I appreciate, and John, I appreciate all your time helping me think through this. It's a usually the problem is very obvious to me. Like I'm a theory of constraints kind of person, and I'm always
Right.
looking for the biggest constraint. This one has been very elusive to me, and so everything you're saying makes perfect sense to me. I appreciate you highlighting where I should look next to find that constraint. And
Mm.
it could be in marketing, it could be in sales. I don't think it's delivery. Our delivery is great. So
Right.
and so to your point, it's most likely going to be we need to do the sales process better. I did bring in a new salesperson who's taking calls this week because I wanted to have someone who's actually closed for us in the past because I wanted to
Right.
have that, like, are you having the same problem too? Kind of approach to
Right.
things. So hoping to have more data here in the near future.
Okay, good. Yeah, that's interesting, and I'd like to hear that. So tell the team how that goes. Okay, cool. So we're over time, but I didn't want to rush it because I was quite enjoying the conversation actually. So perhaps let's finish with this. We've talked about quite a number of things. What are the biggest takeaways for you, and what do you feel are some action items that you and Nicole will go back and do?
I think again the idea of being able to nurture our audience in ways besides like how we used to do with Instagram with DMs and you know, constantly seeing our content. We retargeted everyone who followed us.
Right.
We need to do something like that with our email list and, you know, the other organic channels that we serve people. And so I think we can do better on the back end. I think we also need to make offers to our email list. We have not implemented that. That's probably something we should be doing
Right.
better. Um, and I think beyond that, constantly staring at our sales process, you know, having your team help us watch some tape actually is something that Casey's already done for us once. So I
Right.
think we can continue to get better at our sales process and keep dialing in and tweaking that. And I appreciate what you're saying about like you're really only a couple percentage points away in the final act of the entire process to get back
Mm.
to where we want to be, and then we can look at doubling ad spend or increasing our organic, you know, efforts to bring people to these sales calls. So I have a
Mm.
couple really good action items here. I'm also
Mm.
really interested in that email training because
Yeah.
that's going to be kind of top of mind for us here. But I feel like I have a lot to take away here and go work on.
Okay, good. I'm pleased to hear that, and I'll just leave you with one extra thing, which is on top of all of that stuff and all the things we've discussed. It obviously came up, but I want to just draw extra attention to it. Um, you're currently, even with this funnel feeling like it's in some ways underperforming, you're still currently 3 to 1 against ad spend, which, as far as a front end cold traffic acquisition machine is concerned, it's not too bad. If we were
Okay.
on this call right now and it was break even, then we'd be going, well, then you're a couple of scale points away from this breaking, you know? But you're 3 to 1, which I would look at this and go, okay, in one sense, we could look at that as a, a kind of successful channel. And if we can just bolster the rest of the business, then you're in a really good spot. Because if we're 3 to 1 on ad spend, which is the immediate conversion, well, now we've got all these leads. So as we scale, all these leads are coming in. The email stuff picks it back up. It helps to generates more revenue. That makes it even more profitable in the larger sense. Then you've got all the clients that are coming in. You can activate referral programs. I'm sure you've got something like that. But you can focus more on that stuff. Clients lead to more clients, lead to more clients. Like I'm looking at this going, if this right here is the current cold traffic acquisition model, we can just, even the numbers staying the same, we could add all the other stuff around it, reactivate all the content you were talking about, and you might find that it actually plays its part in the bigger picture and everything scales around it, even if nothing improves within it. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah, no, I appreciate that context. It's a good mindset shift for me.